Llefarydd UKIP.
UKIP spokesperson Neil Hamilton.
Well, just carrying on with the NVZs, as the Cabinet Secretary knows, this is causing considerable concern amongst those who might be affected by it. And I'd just like to support the approach which has been taken by our colleague from Preseli. It is open to the Cabinet Secretary, of course, as a consequence of this consultation, to avoid a heavy-handed approach if she's convinced that we can achieve the objectives of the directives, habitats directives and environmental directives that are concerned here by voluntary means. And I'm sure she's aware of the experiment which has been undertaken in the Cleddau by farmers, which has successfully reduced nitrate levels on their farms to below those which are the limits in EU rules and regulations. And they've achieved these outcomes at a fraction of the cost which they would have incurred if they'd had to install massive new vats for the storage of slurry, etc. So can she, without wishing in any way to anticipate the results of the inquiry, reassure us today that schemes of this kind will certainly be borne in mind so that we can reduce the costs to farmers of necessary environmental controls?
Yes, I've considered many different schemes, and farmers have come to me with what they have done around this issue. And I said in my answer to Paul Davis, I've seen figures of 80,000, I've seen figures of 150,000. I spoke to a farmer, I think from Monmouthshire, who had done it absolutely at a fraction of that cost. So I do want to reassure members I am very open to the suggestions that have come forward, and that's why it has taken much longer than I did anticipate in the first place.
I'm sure everybody wants the right decision to be made at the end of the day, and if a delay results in that, nobody's going to complain. Of course, that condition is that we get the right decision at the end of the day. But this particular experiment that I referred to a moment ago in the Cleddau has managed to reduce the nitrate leachage into the soil and the waterways by nearly 90%. So if that were to be extended county-wide into Pembrokeshire, that would be a massive advantage to us. And so schemes of this kind, I think, show the benefits of working with the industry to achieve desirable outcomes which will please those who have environmental concerns at the top of their agenda, without having to use a stick to force people to do what they want to do. This is in the best interest of farmers as well, because the NFU have developed this blue flag scheme, just like Red Tractor, which would be a very useful method of marketing our products as well, that they're produced with environmentally sensitive policies. So that's good news for farming as well as for the environment.
I absolutely think you have to work with the industry in relation to policy and strategies, and it was just last week that the Minister for Environment and myself had a presentation around the Blue Flag scheme. So we are still considering everything that's come before us over the past year, and as I reiterate again, I will be making a statement in the next 2 weeks.
I mean, it is important, of course, that, that environmental concerns are taken seriously, and therefore that the methods employed, if they're not controlled by statute or regulation, are properly audited, and therefore that the results can be regarded as credible. And this particular scheme in the Cleddau is being audited by Natural Resources Wales. So there again, if the regulatory bodies are working hand in glove with the industry, at the end of the day, everybody is happy, and after all, happiness is what we as politicians want to produce for our constituents. So I hope that I hope that the Cabinet Secretary will be able, when she announces her result, to be the Cabinet Secretary for happiness in the countryside.
Well, yes, I'd like to think I am the Cabinet Secretary for happiness in the countryside. I think that at the beginning of that last question, you made a very important point about the balance. And, I always used to say at that time I was Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Rural Affairs. So it was absolutely imperative I did that balancing. Now, obviously, we've got Minister for the Environment. That doesn't mean the environment is any less important to me as Cabinet Secretary. So it is absolutely vital that any policy you bring forward is a balanced approach, and it's certainly been very helpful having so many responses to the consultation and having so many individual farmers, and then obviously the 2 farmers who came to see me around the Blue Flag scheme, you know, bringing forward their ideas, how they've managed to reduce the nitrates, etc. So yes, you're right, I will be bringing forward that statement.